Hello and welcome to Botanic Shed. I'm Laura Cowan and today I'm speaking to a young woman who took a leap of faith and moved to Botswana in southern Africa with her baby daughter and her husband, away from everything she knew in London. The experience, though, became a source of creative and philanthropic inspiration for her. She's called Ferelith Molke. Her business, Beabond, works with groups of female artisans in Botswana, and she has set up a long-term partnership with the Ecoexist Project that seeks to reduce conflict and foster coexistence between elephants and people. She talks to us about how the move to Africa ignited in her a sense of belonging to Mother Earth. I'm extremely proud to support her projects, particularly the jewellery range Ecoexist, of which 100% of the profits support the charity's work. Make sure you listen to the end when she gives us her top nature connection tips. I also love the quote she reads out by Joseph Campbell. The goal of life is to make your heartbeat match the beat of the universe, to match your nature with nature. Hello. I'm with Ferelith Molke, who is a girl. I don't know how it's happened, but we have created a lovely, energetic relationship just from meeting each other on a networking call. Ferelith was out in the woods in Belgium, and she's going to tell you her story. She's in Belgium at the moment, as I said. She's had a life in Botswana, which has fed her a lot of beautiful natural experiences. And she's now running a lifestyle business that leans in a big way into nature. She's got some stories to tell us and a tip to give us.
Yeah, it was so crazy that we just connected, and I think I jumped on a call pretty quickly after that with you. Like you say, a spark, which is really rare, especially through screens and what have you. So one day we'll meet in person. But yeah, I'm in Belgium, so only over the water from you, but I've been here 3 years, and before that I left London and lived in Botswana for 5 years. So I haven't been in the UK for a while, and I think that kind of this journey to nature that I experienced couldn't have happened at a better time, actually. I just had my daughter, so I was kind of a new mum, sort of juggling trying to be in London and do the whole motherhood thing, which was really frantic, and I really struggled with the pressure of, did I want my old life of living in a very fast-paced environment, or did I want to be a mum that was connecting with a newborn or a young girl? So I had these big shifts going on in my head, and then my husband got this job offer in Botswana. So we kind of decided to go. We thought that would be the best thing for both of us, and having a new baby as well, we were like, okay, if we don't do it now, when will be the right time? So we literally just dived in, and I would say it was quite a momentous shift, adjusting to living in Southern Africa. I don't know, have you been to Botswana? Do you know a little bit about it?
Kenya.
Okay, so
South Africa, but not Botswana, no.
Okay, so it's landlocked in Southern Africa. So it's north of South Africa. It's in between Zimbabwe and Namibia. And it's about, in European terms, it's about the size of France. And there's only 2.3, I think is the latest statistic, 2.3 million people in a country the size of France. And 41% of it is protected land. So you've got national parks, you've got everything from the Okavango Delta, which we all, if anyone's watched David Attenborough, you'll be well aware of the importance of the World UNESCO Heritage Site, through to the Kalahari Desert, which is where, if you've ever watched Top Gear, they did that quite famous driving through the pans. So yeah, it's a stunning country, but very low population. I didn't move to the bush. I moved to the capital, which is in the south. But it was a huge transformation for me, because I left really busy London, where you're always running around at like 6.
What was your job in London?
Sorry?
What was your job in London?
I was freelance before I became a mum. So I was working in actually in the yachting industry. So went from the yachting industry to a landlocked country, so that wasn't going to work. But I always knew that I wanted to do something for myself. And so a stepping stone to get to that point was going freelance. I was actually working in sort of marketing and events and sort of doing a little bit of everything because I knew that I needed to find that one thing, and I knew that it would come at the right time. I just didn't know what that right time would be, or I didn't actually know what exactly it would be. So we arrived in Botswana. Like I said, the pace was a complete shift, but it was an opportunity for me to slow down. And I think that is key. I think that a lot of the talks that you've done, everyone says slow down. That's a way to connect. That's a way to connect with yourself and your surroundings. I would say it was kind of forced on me that I had to slow down, in that I didn't have a car. We were living in a city I didn't know, even though it's a very small city. Had my daughter and was kind of just at home all the time. Didn't have a network of friends at the beginning. But I soon realized, you're living by the rhythm of the sun. It's quite near the equator, so every day is pretty much the same. Sun comes up between 6:30, goes down between 6:30. So you've kind of got this window of 12 hours, beautiful sunshine, very hot, and very dry. So I think that really slowing down, being aware of the rhythm of the sun, just completely balanced me, without me realizing, because I was like, every day's the same, but it wasn't. Every day was kind of amazing. You saw sunsets every evening. You saw sunrise every morning. With a young one, you're always getting up early. And the stars, I can romanticize it, but it was absolute just wonder and amazement. We had a power cut, I think, within the first month of getting there, and it was nighttime, and we were like, okay, what do? We weren't prepared for not having power, and so we got the ladder. We had a ladder, and we got up on the flat roof, and my husband and we just looked up, and you could see the Milky Way. And I growing up in the Northern Hemisphere, hadn't seen the Milky Way look like that, and it was a real pinch me moment of wow, okay, this is pretty cool that we're living here. And it was, once we got past, getting those survival skills of, okay, if the power goes out, what do you do? How are you going to cook? What do you prepare for dinner? And, all those little things. Or, there's a water cut. We're in a country with a drought. What do we do? How do we get around that? And it's quite kind of Bear Grylls, you need to know how to survive. But I think all of those things teach you that you are way more capable as a human being than you kind of give yourself credit for when you live in a developed Northern Hemisphere, Western world, where you're very sheltered all the time with everything working. So that was my kind of crash course to arriving in Africa. It took probably a good year to really get to grips with everything. In that time, I also was pregnant again, so I had my son in Africa, and that's really when I started to feel that I was ready to get creative, and that was the beginning of really seeing things and realizing that there's a deeper level to being on this crazy planet.
Well, what you were saying about really doing the Bear Grylls type stuff and noticing that and figuring out how to do things, but that's all has to come from you and your intuition and your own skills, your motor skills, your initiative and all that stuff, which is your natural skills. But if you're in London just doing, or anywhere, and you're just doing what you're doing, and surrounded by all the media and everything feels like you're just doing something that someone else is telling you to do. And so it must have been really lovely and liberating to live like that. It
was very empowering, really empowering. I came back feeling every time that I would come back to London or to, which wasn't very often, it was kind of once a year, I would get to see my family. I would always feel like much stronger in myself. Like I had, I had the means to survive, therefore, kind of water off a duck's back for everything else that may or may not be thrown at me. So yeah, that was pretty amazing. I try and hang on to that feeling as much as possible, and kind of, even if I can't be physically in that space again, I can always sort of meditate about it and find that that inner capability, which is quite nice. So around the time that I started to get feeling like I could get creative was at the same time that it's quite a weird one. I needed to get the kids some clothes. They were both growing. I had my son and my daughter by then. And I was like, oh, what am I going to do? Where am I going to get some nice clothes for my kids? And I started just looking around. Like, this is just a really random thing. I started looking around, reading labels. I didn't just want to go and buy something, because what I'd realized was, even though I was learning all these survival skills, I was also unlearning a lot of the things from the UK, which was like, oh, I'm just going to go out and buy something. I was sort of shedding that skin, if you like, of quick fixes, just go and buy something, or quick remedy. I was like, no, there's got to be something deeper. So I sort of shunned buying something fast fashion that was made in Cambodia or wherever in the world. I was like, no, I want to support local. And I came across a fabric shop which had this really beautiful fabric, which was local. It was made, it's actually the national fabric of Botswana, called jewellery. And what I really loved about it was not only that it was local and it was a cotton and breathable, it was like something tangible that was from Africa, but it was also inspired, like all the patterns are inspired by nature. So they've got this blue and white spot, which is inspired by the guinea fowl, the colours of the feathers of the guinea fowl. And they had this other one, which was like the eyes of all the animals. And I was like, suddenly seeing all these patterns and seeing how they were connected to nature. And I was like, it's like there's seeing and then there's seeing. So I think I arrived at that point where I was beginning to see, like, the veil had been lifted, and I started to see patterns everywhere. I started to notice, even the millipedes in the garden, like how they make this beautiful spiral when they curl up when they're a bit scared, or the patterns of the caterpillars or the beetles. And of course, I was with my kids a lot, so I was kind of seeing nature through their eyes. Part of it was to make sure that I didn't get scared by the spiders and the things that could come in the house, like the snakes and what have you, like desensitize myself, as well as give them a lesson of like things to look out for and which ones are the good ones and the bad ones, and don't step on that spiky thing because that's going to hurt you, and all those lessons. Yeah, I think that I started to sort of see patterns everywhere, which was really interesting. That's why I started to work with fabrics. But moving on a little bit more in terms of other things that sort of came into my consciousness at the same time, was water. So I mentioned earlier that, we would have a water cut, and it was like, okay, what do you do when there's no water? And of course, the quick thing, or the thing to think about, is like, have you bought enough water for your property, for your house, so that, you can drink something. You don't need to wash for days on end, but you do need to drink something. And then I think, because we were there for 5 years, at some point we invested in kind of, it's called a JoJo tank, which is like an extra storage tank for water. So the kind of practical things. But the bigger picture is, moving to Botswana, which is a desert country, which is 100% reliant on rainfall. You really get a sense of, when there's a 10-year drought, the crops are going to fail, the cattle's going to die. And eventually, people won't get the water that they need, which is partly why there were lots of water cuts. But it became very apparent that this bigger picture of climate change and the importance of water wasn't something that would just disappear. You know what I mean? Like, it was a real hard awakening to this is what it means. This is what climate change means. This is the reality of who it's going to affect and how. So it kind of caused my habits to change. Like I said, shopping, things at home, reducing, reusing. I think we caught a lot of water whenever it did rain. I think in 6 months it rained like 7 days. So, any rainfall was so precious. Like we would catch water. We had many days where we didn't shower. If we did have a bath, it was kind of like a really shallow bath for all 4 of us in the family, or like the quickest showers that you can ever imagine. So it was always a challenge when we'd have like friends or family visit. We were like, okay, please, you can't take a long shower, or you might not be able to take a shower, and that's okay too. So it was a little bit like camping, which was, like I said, it was that whole Bear Grylls thing of survival, but it was also a lot of fun. A bit different from being back in Belgium, where it rains a lot. I think I've moved to the greyest, wettest country.
Right, exactly. Yes, very different. I think Belgium's known for so much rain and puddles, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think when you're exposed to things which are quite, completely different to what you're used to, but also quite shocking, it's like another layer of awakening to what nature is and to what this planet is. So going alongside that, so I kind of had already like this notion of seeing things. Then I had this notion of water and the scarcity and the life and death situation. And then also added onto that, we're living in Botswana, which is next to the Okavango Delta. It's next to the most pristine wildlife left on the continent of Africa. And so I began to really look into that and start to understand that. And, we took a lot of opportunity to take drives. We drove to Namibia, to the Skeleton Coast. We drove down to South Africa. We just pile into the car and just drive for days on end just to go and see different landscapes, and met a lot of amazing people along the way who obviously guides if we went into a safari type scenario, but also other people that were living locally who would teach us about animals or nature or plants. And so just understanding the importance of biodiversity started to kind of, again, like all these things started to come into my consciousness. And I didn't really think at the time that they were impacting me, but definitely they were, because, all these different things, learning about elephants, they are crucial for the ecosystem.
Funnily enough, we're talking to a guy called Ian Redmond, who focuses on elephants, their survival, and he talks about how they are the gardeners of the forest in a TED talk. Mm-hmm. And that is because their dung literally is the compost of the forest.
Exactly. They're just, they are huge. An elephant is massive, but they move so silently. And I thought that was really poignant, that they are, the world's largest land mammal.
Yeah.
And yet they move so silently. And that, if they keep moving so silently, they will disappear not only in my lifetime, but in my children, grandchildren, so on. And so that was real calling to me, that I had to do something to protect them. And I found this amazing charity in Botswana called Ecoexist, and they focus on human-elephant coexistence. So I was like, okay, just like you and I had a spark, myself and Anna, the founder, had a spark, and I said, I've got to do something with you. So I've created a capsule jewellery collection with her, and 100% of the profits goes to support Ecoexist. So that was kind of...
You've jumped from just starting to think creatively to actually creating a jewellery collection. Amazing, for elephant survival. That's brilliant.
So I'm really passionate about raising awareness for all this amazing stuff that they do. They're very holistic with their approach, which is amazing, because I think that conservation is quite a challenging topic. And there's no one size fits all. So I really love the work they do. So yeah, as you say, I sort of started making and creating things. I even started writing, which I hadn't really ever done. But I would start journaling or start writing little things, which, just my day, taking the kids to school. Like, what did I see? What did I hear? How was the breeze on the palm trees? Quite sort of poetic, which I would never have done in London. I would never have, A, had the time, or B, had the creative juices flowing. That all comes down to being in nature. And I think it comes down to that kind of sense of coming home, which I didn't tell you this at the beginning of the conversation because I thought, let me leave it to now. But it wasn't a difficult decision to move to Botswana because my grandmother had been born in Kenya and my mum had grown up there. And I've still got cousins in Africa. My husband didn't know this at the time, but it wasn't really a challenge for me to kind of make that leap to go. Because I thought, well, that's a bit of a coming home for me to be, on the same soil that I'd heard about in my childhood from my parents' childhood. But then also on a deeper level, it was about coming home to, the birthplace of humankind. I mean, Botswana, there was a study done about, I think, 5 years ago, and they found that they thought the cradle of mankind was in southern Africa and South Africa, but now they found that they've got DNA from 200,000 years ago, which is in the Mahari pans in Botswana. So it was kind of like, oh my God, this makes sense. This feeling of coming home at a very deep, I wouldn't say I'm spiritual, but at a very deep level that feels, almost spiritual. And I know that's quite a word that a lot of people kind of get a bit scared about, but I think that's, whether it's you're talking about soul or spirit, it's this sort of intangible, indescribable feeling of being connected.
So having started being creative and supporting charities like that, where have you got to and where are you now in that creative journey with nature?
So the journey that it's taken me on hasn't been a straight line. Pretty much like, I think, any journey, there's always sort of, you can go this way or that way and you can choose which avenue you're going to go. But I've pretty much founded a brand called Beabond, which is encompassing everything that I've experienced and presenting it to the world. So the ethos is obviously very much aligned to what I've experienced in Africa. It's creating fewer, better things, like creating things that have a purpose, like you say, with the capsule collection I've created with Ecoexist. The purpose is to raise money to support conservation. And likewise, I've made a small capsule collection of children's wear. And the purpose of that is, well, I think they're beautiful and they're pieces that you would want to hang on to for your next generation or pass on to siblings, but also it supports a local business in Botswana. So it empowers women and it supports them. And we'll see, hopefully that can grow and we can do other things with it. At the moment, we're quite early on that journey. So that's where we're at with that. And then it's about working with different artisans who I've had the luck and the privilege to meet in Botswana. One of them is a group of weavers in the Okavango Delta, which, I mean, the journey to get to them was an experience in itself, but they are an incredible group of 50 women who are part of the Nyamiland Basket Weavers Trust, who we support. One initiative is working with them and we've created some lovely lampshades, which are all beautifully woven. I mean, I've got the whole story online, but yeah, they're just incredible pieces of art. And then also I'm supporting them through a special collection of jewellery that we've designed in collaboration. So I give back 20% of the profits going back to support them directly. So there's different initiatives that I'm doing, which are all very much giving back to people in Botswana to support people, planet, and wildlife. And I'm really interested in raw materials. So I work with Botswana diamonds, very much focusing on knowing the route that they have taken from mine all the way through to a piece of jewellery, and knowing exactly where things are from and who it affects and how it affects. So yeah, I'm really passionate about that side of things with the brand.
And your life, how's nature? I mean, you told me before, quite heartfelt, has it impacted on your life as a whole? I mean, it's obviously created a really beautiful creative life for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's touched every aspect of my life. So not only did it kind of give me this opportunity to be creative with a business, but it's yeah, I think it's sort of infiltrated everything that I do, and I would never not be able to be in nature again. There's this great quote, which is by Joseph Campbell, which I'm going to read because I'm really bad at remembering things, but it's like, the goal of life is to make your heartbeat match the beat of the universe, to match your nature with nature, which I absolutely love.
That is beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful.
So I try and hang on to those moments of being in nature. One of my favorite things to do was that actually my tip is to eat outside whenever possible. So even if it's like cold and it's wintry, the minute that it's a bit sunny, I've got a little tiny bench just outside my back door. So I'll just sit there, wrap up, and have my bowl of soup at lunchtime or whatever.
You do the same thing.
Just to be outside and, you know, just to take that moment without your phone and what have you. Another thing I like to do is, well, I take the dog out every day. I have a dog, but I quite like going out with the dog when it's nighttime. And the reason is that it makes all your senses come alive that don't come alive in the daytime. So in the daytime, you might be seeing and looking and your eyes are really busy, but at nighttime, you have to rely on your ears as well as, you know, your eyes are really straining to maybe see if there's not strong moonlight. So I kind of like that as well.
That's one of those, you know, using all your senses. It trains you to be mindful and to observe, and so no wonder that's helpful for you, and it's a really good tip as well, because it's means on your other senses. You don't often, people often don't do much listening nowadays, do they? Slowly, but that's beautiful. I think this eating outside thing is massive, because it just gives you, I know it might only give you 2 minutes outside, but it might give you 2 minutes outside a day that you weren't even going to spend any time outside. And it also gives you the opportunity to look up and see a bird, a plane, or anything that might give you a sense of awe, which then triggers dopamine in your head, in your neuron system. So,
and it's so nice. I think food always tastes better outside. We did a lot of eating outside in Botswana, but you know, even here, like, we'll just go to the beach, which I always think now. I regret the times I never went to the beach before, when it's like, it's always an hour's drive, but you know, it's always worth it. You get there and you might eat your sandy sandwiches, but they're going to be much more interesting on the beach, looking at the sea or being in sand dunes, versus kind of being in your kitchen or, you know, stuck indoors. And I'm not the best at like swimming when it's really cold, but I do try whenever possible to, you know,
do the cold thing. Oh, brilliant! I think that's a fantastic key. The key one, I think, if everyone would like to share it and remember it, is to get that time to go outside and eat. It's really, really, really good. I think it's not only, I'm sure food tastes better because you can focus your senses on things, especially because I mean, like, I think you mentioned it, just looking at your phone while you're eating. I think if you're actually not doing that, that's probably why it tastes better. And then you've also got sights to help you feel better.
And it's just a bit exciting to be outdoors, whether you're wrapping up warm or not. It just feels like, you know, you're taking the time. It becomes a little bit of a ceremony versus, I just need to eat to fuel my body. And, you know, we do so much on auto drive or autopilot. It's like, actually, it's nice just to take yourself out of that and just be. It's like potting a plant, I'm sure.
Thank you so much. You took yourself out of England literally to an outdoors eating situation, probably almost every day, and then bringing us the tip to reach out to us more often. It's a really good one. And your story is lovely, and I can't wait to see your business flourish. And the fact that you're helping so many people who touch your hearts, and animals too, is wonderful. So well done. It's been really nice talking to you. I can't wait to talk to you again.
Thank you. And I can't wait to see you in real life.
In real life one day. Lovely. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.